Hello, everyone. This is Craig with Southern Fried Geekery Podcast. I wanted to invite you all out to Comic Conway presented by Faulkner County Library on November 15th through 17th. Friday will be at the library in Conway, and Saturday will be at the Conway Expo and Event Center. There will be some fantastic guests there. Freddie Williams, Howard Chaykin, Matthew Reynolds. Come out and join us and come see this wonderful show that's being presented to you.
1, 2, 3.
So we were sitting here watching it, and at some point Steph was like, oh, well, didn't she say something about having a dream where she's running through the woods and she was chasing herself? And it like clicked, and I was like, oh, this is that movie. But it made absolutely no sense when you go back and watch it. So basically, I'm going to save you the time and money from ever watching this movie.
I appreciate that.
It takes place, I think it's like Austria or something like that.
Else, apparently.
Well, no, okay, so... This girl, I think she's French, and she's with one of her friends summer vacation.
French people don't have friends.
It's absolutely a French movie.
Yeah. So her friend from school is taking her out to stay the summer with her and study and all this stuff. While they're out there, some hillbilly serial killer guy comes in, murders the entire family except for her friend. He doesn't know that she's in the house. So then he basically chains the friend up and throws her in the back of the truck. So you start this entire thing of like her chasing him, trying to get her friend back. And then her it comes to a head where she like kills this guy and then goes to free her friend. And then you find out that she was the dude the whole time. Like she was like herself. She was seeing the perspective of herself and this like murderer. And like none of it made sense because there was a straight up like chase scene where she's like following him, trying to figure out where he's taking her, and then he runs her off the road and shit. And like it was bizarre.
You're like, how is any of this happening if there wasn't a real person?
The best part was when she cut off her friend's head, and she was the truck driver persona at the time, and she's got the head giving herself head with it.
Well,
what movie is this?
It wasn't. She didn't do that
tension.
to her. She didn't do that to her friend. It happened at the beginning of the
It's
movie.
a French horror movie.
Before you even see the main protagonist and stuff, you see this this fucked up like truck and everything, and you see this dude, and he's got this like, you think it's this woman by the head, and he's just like, bobbing up and down, and then all of a sudden you find out that he like tosses it out the window and it's a severed head. And it's like, none of this makes any sense because literally through that time she was in the car with her friend driving to her friend's house.
It's a horror movie. It's
Jerry.
supposed to make sense.
Yeah. No, it was real weird.
Jerry.
This reminds me of the first time somebody described Human Centipede to me.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Why would you watch that?
Wait a minute. What?
Well, it's like they had this grand plan of like, it turns out she's the killer, but none of it made sense on like the perspectives that they used and everything for this movie.
Y'all watch weird shit.
It was like there's
I went to the
literally
movie
a
theater
scene
to watch this movie.
where she gets stuck in the back of the truck. The guy stops at a gas station, and she gets out and she goes in to hide in the gas station to try to tell the guy to call the cops. The serial killer version of herself comes in, and the guy at the gas station recognizes him, and they're like chummy.
All buddy.
Yeah, and then like the serial killer version of herself realizes that the gas station guy sees her like trying to hide, so he kills the gas station attendant, and then later on they show the footage and it's just her killing the gas station attendant.
Like, the more you're talking, the more I kind of want to see this so I can try to figure it out.
Just do it.
Like, it doesn't sound good,
it's,
but
it's for rent on Amazon for like $5.
Oh, I don't know if I'm paying American money for
That's
this.
what I'm saying. Like
I went to the theater and saw it, so...
Yeah. Like, I mean, probably for 2005, it was like, whoa, mind blow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But watching it nowadays and seeing all the plot holes that they put in it was just like...
On some level, I'm fine with movies that try to take chances.
Yeah. Well, you're literally every single time you're going to be like, why did she do this? Like, what is going on here? Like, I don't...
Mental illness, that's the answer. That's the answer to this whole show.
That's going to be the... Oh, it's burying the lead there. More things to come. Matt is expressing his opinion already. Either that or he just started Mortal Kombat. I'm not really sure. Well, hey, out there in Radio Land, we hope you guys are doing okay. How you doing? Everybody good? We hope so. we would like to welcome you back to another episode.
None of us responded.
Well, I was talking
was
to the
talking to the
listeners.
audience.
I was talking to the
Yeah.
people who are listening to this show, our dear friends who keep us going, who motivate us. Because we love them, and they're back. They're back to listen to another show, and they're back to listen to episode 94 of the Southern Fried Geekery podcast. As per usual, I am Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
Matt Trogdon.
Jerry Smith.
Craig Lance.
And I am glad to have all my booze back at the table today. This is going to be fun times. For those of you who may not have listened to the show, maybe this is your first time. Maybe you're popping your SFG cherry today, and that's cool. We're welcoming you here. And this is going to be a really fun episode because we are doing... we're sticking to the same format you know and love, but we're throwing a little twist in there. We are not going to roundtable a book that we all read. We are going to roundtable a film that we have all witnessed, we viewed, we have brought it into our consciousness, and we have interpreted it in different ways, which is fun. And we're going to talk about that. And that movie is none other than Joker. So here is your full-blown fair spoiler warning. If you have not seen Joker and you intend to, don't listen to this show because we are going to spoil things. Go watch it, then come back and then see if maybe your opinion lines up with my opinion, or maybe it lines up with Craig's, or maybe it's Jerry's, or maybe it's Matt's.
Listen, I'm not going to tell you to straight up not listen to our episode. Just skip like 10 minutes ahead, 15 minutes ahead.
It'll be fun times. But we also are going to talk about some comics after that, so stick around and you'll get lots of comic talk. If you want to see more of this, maybe you're like, it's a Tuesday. I sure would like to talk to somebody about some of this stuff on a Tuesday. And you're like, where can I do that at? Well, I have an answer for you. And the answer to that question is the Southern Fried Geekery podcast page. And you can be a member of our groups. You just go in, you answer 3 little questions about comics, and we accept you. We bring you into the fold. And once you've passed that threshold, you're good. You just get to have conversations with lots of folks.
Yeah, as long as you're not an asshole, you're
Yeah.
good.
And we haven't had any of those on
We
the
have
page.
not.
Yeah, we've good times. We
had one.
did we? Oh, I blocked that out of my mind.
Also, these things are not restricted to Tuesdays.
They're not. You can
No.
do it any day of the week.
Yeah.
It's fun times. You can also follow us on Instagram and Twitter. We're at SFG Podcast on both of those. Maybe you've got a question. Maybe you have a query. Maybe you have a complaint or concern. Maybe you want to bitch about Matt. I do sometimes. And so I send myself an email at southernfriedgeekery@gmail.com and I say, hey, that Matt guy, fuck that guy. I don't say that really.
What happened?
Matt's a great guy.
What'd I do?
I love you, buddy. But no, shoot us an email, southernfriedgeekery@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your thoughts. How are we doing on the show? Let us know. And that's where you can do that at. If you want to do us a big solid, real big favor, we'll give you hugs for it. Go on Instagram or Podbean or wherever you listen to the podcast at and rate and review us. Give us some stars, whatever you feel is worthy. I think we need 5. I would appreciate 5. And it lets not only us know how we're doing, it also lets the algorithms from iTunes and all that fun stuff recommend us. That way people can get on there and they say, hey, maybe this is a show of quality. Maybe these gentlemen here have intelligent,
They would be
inspired
wrong.
things.
Oh, man, quality.
See, I think you're both
Intelligence.
undercutting yourself.
Now I'm nervous.
Immensely.
I didn't know we were going for quality.
Yeah. it's like justice. It's just spread out over a long period of time, but it does arc towards quality as we slowly figure this stuff out. And we would appreciate that. But as we always do, we're going to get warmed up. You know, it's early in the morning. It's cold outside. The motors aren't running hot yet. So let's drop some short stacks. We'll talk about a few comics that we all read this week to kind of get us in the mood to talk. I'm in the mood to dissect these things. I'll go first. I've got my list pulled up, if you don't mind. So the first thing I read this week was a really fun little black and white outlaw comic. It's called Rooftop Stew by Matt Clotfeller. Think of early Robert Crumb, a little bit, not nearly as polished as Robert Crumb. Make statements about drugs. I consider Robert Crumb to be a little polished.
Yeah.
And in a style. This was a little bit rougher.
Gotcha.
In that similar R. Crumb style.
Gotcha.
But this, different mini stories, lots of drug use, sex, coming of age stuff.
Good
bad,
times.
Bad parenting. Yeah, it was rough. But a great book. It was a fun read. Very subversive. I also read Invaders number 10 by Chip Zdarsky, Carlos Magno, Butch Geiss, and Alex Guillermez. I'm going to be sad when this series ends. It's going to end at 12, but it's just been killer. I love this stuff. Now, I'm a mark for Namor anyway, but yeah, it's good stuff. And then last but certainly not least, I got caught up on the latest issue of Ronin Island by Greg Pak, Giannis, Milo Giannis, and Irma Navilla, which is this really cool kind of all ages Pan-Asian samurai knights ninja story with zombies type things. Fun stuff. Good stuff. We talked about it on the show before.
Yeah,
you can go
did.
search for that and find it.
I'll go next, I guess. I read The Batman's Grave by Warren Ellis and Brian Hitch.
I didn't read that yet.
Oh,
How
it's
was that?
good.
Oh, it was really good.
Nice.
It was so nice to have a Batman story that's a detective story
Here, here.
and not a superhero story.
Hell yeah.
And Brian Hitch's art on this was fucking amazing.
I love Brian Hitch.
I read Redneck Number 24 by Image Comics, Donnie Cates, Lissandro Estrin, and D. Cunefe. For those of you that are reading this, Coronia is dead, Bartlett gets a power-up, and Grandpa's back.
Nice.
And then they're going to take a little break. It didn't say for how long, but it was nice to see. If you remember Grandpa, because I know you read some of the early issues.
I'm still reading it.
Are you? Okay,
Yeah.
Did you read this issue?
It's on my stack. I have not read it yet.
Okay, well, I won't spoil it for you. But yeah, it's really fucking good. Then I read Star Wars: Rise of Skywalker Allegiance #1 by Ethan Sachs and Luke Ross. This book picks up pretty much right after the events of The Last Jedi and is kind of building how the Resistance rebuilds in the wake of not having anybody left.
Ethan Sachs, isn't he the one who wrote the Old Man Quill stories and stuff? How were those? I didn't catch those either.
I didn't read them.
The Old Man Hawkeye was really good.
Was it? Okay.
Really good. Surprised me. I picked it up not really expecting much, and I was on the whole thing.
Okay.
Our buddy Castro loved Old Man Quill.
Yeah.
I haven't finished it yet, but it kind of started off a little slow, but
It's got to pay off according to Castro.
yeah.
So.
I mean, if they keep wanting to do those old Marvel character in the 12-issue format, I'm completely fine with it.
Cool.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fantastic.
I'll check it out.
Yeah.
That's my 3.
All right. So this week I read Mission Yozakura Family Chapter 8. It's one of the new Shonen Jump series that I've picked up here lately. Don't know how long it's gonna last, with their whole meat and grinder that they have going on. It's by Hitsuji Gondaira.
Are they making sausages?
Well, Shonen Jump has this whole meat grinder of voting each week on their stuff on what's popular, and if you fall under a certain number, you basically get cut. Yeah, so
Brutal.
There's a lot of shoujo series that just don't make it past.
Pay attention,
first or
DC
third.
Comics.
In Marvel.
Yeah.
So it was actually the end of the first story arc. The one of the main characters, Mutsumi, who's the head of the Yozakura family, got kidnapped, and it was up to Taiyo and the rest of the family to save her, and they had a conclusion to that story. Also read My Hero Academia Chapter 246 by Kohei Horikoshi.
I wonder if that one's going to make it past the meat grinder.
It's somehow surprisingly made it to 246 chapters, so I would not be surprised if that happens.
It's on its last leg.
Yeah. Really great issue. They're building up right now. Manga will have this where they'll hit a pinnacle to an arc, and then they kind of have the slope of setting things up for the next. And now they're in that build up of there's this big threat that's coming, and one of the top heroes is he's kind of involved in some stuff, and he's doing a lot of planning, and it's getting these high school kids ready for the professional superhero world, and whatever this threat is that's about to happen, and they're going to be our way. But they had this great set of pages with really the panel layout was just really intriguing how they did it. It was almost like kind of points, like triangles sort of for each panel, and it showed what each kid from each class, who they were working under and everything like that. So it was a really good wrap up to what he was talking about, them being the next generation. The other thing that I read this week was Dark Crystal Age of Resistance #1.
Nice.
By Archaea. Story is Jeffrey Addis and Will Matthews. Writing is Nicole Andelfinger. Illustrations is Matthias Bosla, who, I honestly didn't know going into this that Matthias was doing the art, because that's who did Sparrowhawk. So it's kind of nice to have him back on something.
Sweet.
And then the colors is Miguel Muerto, and letters is Jim Campbell. It is a prequel to the Netflix series that just
So
released.
it's a prequel to the prequel.
Yeah. So this is kind of setting up. They're dealing with the arachnids right now, and in the Netflix series, we see that the arachnids kind of have this hive mind. Well, in this time frame, this was back when the arachnid wars were just getting started up. And before they had a hive mind, apparently there's like a special type of like leader arachnid that, pops up that once every thousands of years or something like that, that's able to unify them. And so we're about to get a huge war in this. I think it's 6 issues, so should be pretty cool. 6 or 12.
I think they're 12.
12, yeah.
I think all the dark.
Yeah.
The crystal ones.
Yeah.
As well.
So and I like I said, the art is definitely a reason to jump on this book.
Nice. I want to apologize to everybody at home. That sound you heard a while ago was all of the knuckles in my hands popping in like one single moment, very loudly. It scared me too. So don't feel too bad. Hey Matt, you get 3, and I promise I won't cut you off this week. So
thanks.
If you would be a deer, if you would be a lamb, and signal me when you're through. So I'm not rudely trying to deny you. You're right for 3 on the short stack.
Thank you. I was nervous going into this. So I read Image Comics Reaver #4 by Justin Jordan, Rebecca Isaacs, and Alex Guimarães. So the team arrives at the anvil. And blood is shed. A lot happens in this issue. We see some new things from the characters. And I know not everybody has read this at the table, so I'm not going to spoil it. But this was the best issue by far.
I got #3 this week. I'm a month behind.
Wow.
This issue was, man, it turned it on, man. This really makes me feel sad. All of a sudden feel sad when this arc ends because... Yeah, read
Justin Jordan's a beast.
Man, it's
well,
good.
not only is he an amazing writer, Rebecca Isaacs is like stunning. I don't know. I've never read anything. I don't believe that she's drawn, and what she's doing in this is just next level stuff. I'm like, where did you come from? It's a beautiful
book. The execution's killer. Also read DC Comics One-Shot The Joker by John Carpenter and about a dozen other people.
Don't go too far into it because that is my book of the week. So
yeah. So
here's the whole premise.
In summary, I'll say this was an excellent depiction of the Joker, unlike some other things in the media. The art was interesting. The art I can't say was. I
love the art.
Well, the depiction, the art wasn't my favorite. It did its job very well, and I loved this book. Very good, excellent ending. But it's just a day in the life of the Joker and an excellent depiction of it. DC Comics Event Leviathan #5 by Brian Bendis, Alex Maleev, and Josh Reed.
Oh shit! I didn't realize you were still reading this.
Yeah, me either, really. So, yeah. I
read the first issue.
Yeah,
I stayed on it. I don't have a good excuse or reason.
Because you're buying it.
You guys read the first issue? I just bullshitted my way through the review.
Man. I'll say, I like the way Bendis writes Superman.
Yeah.
But man, it actually, we talked about this, Plastic Man being part of the world's greatest detective team.
Yeah.
And it actually spells that out in this book at one point.
That's when it lost me in the first issue.
It made me laugh at itself, because it's like, I've assembled the team of the world's greatest detectives, Batman, Plastic Man. And then it names, I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. So that's my short stack. What a way to end it.
I think that's a fun, that can be fun. That can be a fun premise. So,
no.
It could be.
Plastic Man's a criminal
How
that
very
happened
forgiving
to
of
get
you.
powers and became a good guy. He's not a detective.
Wasn't it Ralph Dibny?
We're talking
that was the
world's
detective?
greatest
Yeah.
detective.
Yeah, Dibny was the detective.
Was he the Elastic Man?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was Plastic Man, not Elastic Man?
It's correct.
It's Plastic Man.
They're Plastic Man scars. Yeah. So it's Plastic Man, but that's not the only problem with the book. It's just.
How was Question in it? Did Question ever do anything?
No. It sucks. It's ridiculous. He's barely in the background.
You want to know
Jeff Lemire doing that later on?
Not totally. Just as an aside, if you want good Question, you need to be reading Lois Lane, because it's a good Question, and there's 2 of them, and they throw back to 52. Like there's that moment when they're on the way to Palm Dun Narbat, however you say that, where the original Question dies. Mm-hmm. They throw back to that in that issue, and it's fucking amazing. Like Rucka's crushing it. So all right, y'all ready to do this? Let's dig in.
Yeah.
All right. So once again,
3-1.
No. I disagree with that. It's not going to be what it is. We are going to be discussing
I never said I hated it.
the film Joker.
Yes.
And as you can tell, there's some differing opinions and there's some expectations of what might be about to be said. But hang out with us for a little bit. So again, if you have not seen Joker, we're getting into it right now. So just a real quick summary of what the film is. I'm not going to go into heavy into details because we don't have enough time.
Okay, I have 2 sentences, 8 words apiece. Go.
I don't know if I can do that. The film centers around, obviously, the man who is Joker, and this iteration of the Joker is Arthur Fleck. He is an individual, early 80s, who has been experiencing some mental health issues most of his entire life. He has sought treatment for it. He has been getting treatment for it, and up until this point, he's been able to cope with what he has. A series of events. Yes.
No, because he was actually in the hospital.
Well, yeah, but he was not in the hospital for committing violent things.
We don't know that.
Yeah, well, we don't know what he was in there for, but
Yeah.
he didn't go to jail. So on some level, he has not expressed the violence that we see that is going to happen in this series of events, or else I doubt they would have let him.
Normally whenever
But-
I see someone slamming their head on the door at a loony bin,
I just assume that person's in law school.
Yeah,
that
makes sense.
So that's just a natural assumption on my
What
end.
stain was on your window?
Yeah, pretty much. A series of events happen. Arthur loses his job through fault of his own, but also extenuating circumstances. He is ignored. He is mistreated both by the people around him and the society around him. And it leads up into a breaking point, and in which he does commit murders. He commits crimes.
See, that's where we differ.
Maybe.
That's where we differ.
Okay.
I think his perception is that he's mistreated.
No, I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit of both. And so he is not the clown prince of crime in this. He is just a man who he does an action. This is a very the city is already in turmoil. There is a lot of let's call it economic distress. There's a lot of economic disparity between the rich and the poor. This takes place at a time, and I think it's early 80s. It is meant to mimic the trash strike of 1981
And crime.
in New York. Yeah. And so,
Except it's in Gotham, but yeah, it's meant to.
the city is broiling to a breaking point, and Arthur finds himself in a subway. There is a young woman sitting there, and there are these 3 kind of Wall Street guys, just kind of it's a Me Too moment. They're acting terribly. Well, the way that the Joker works in this one, his laugh is actually a condition, and he can't control what makes him laugh, and so he just starts cackling in this amazing Joker laugh done by Joaquin Phoenix, and it distracts the attention away from her and onto him. She scurries off. They start beating this man senseless because they can get away with it. Unfortunately, Arthur has started carrying a gun, and he kills all 3 of them, chases one of them down, shoots him in the back several times, unloads this little revolver, in a very, very troubling scene.
Mm-hmm.
Because of this, because people don't know the events of what happens, they just find these 3, socially uplifted young white professionals murdered in the streets and in the subway. This kind of pushes everything over. They're, racial disparity, economic disparity, it all comes to a boiling point based around what Arthur did, but Arthur's not a part of that. And so as the city kind of erupts around him, he just kind of continues to descend into madness. He wants to be a stand-up comedian because he is not good at it. He attracts the attention of a local television show who obtains video of this, and they blast it. And it's a very like Late Show, Jay Leno-esque type thing, played by Robert De Niro. He's put on there to be made fun of. Like, he's displayed for the world to be made fun of. Meanwhile, all this is happening. He's attracted to and has caught the has not caught the attention of, but at least has become infatuated with a neighbor played by Zazie Beetz, who is a young mother with a young child, who they share a really fun moment in the elevator. She laughs at him. She kind of gives him this validation in a sense, but he creates, and this is, again, spoilers for the end of the film, he creates a kind of psychosis around her where he starts imagining that she's a part of the world that really she's not. He kind of impresses in his own mind, he creates a relationship that they don't really have. And of course, when he realizes they don't really have this relationship, it further breaks him. By the end of the show, he's his spree of crime, his spree of violence has reached undeniable levels to the point that it's being broadcasted in a way, and he's caught. He can't get out of it, and he ends up back in a mental institution where he continues to be violent and continues to harm people. And that's where kind of the film closed. Now, before we get deep into it, I think I covered most things, right? Without laying it all out. Before we get into it, I want to know what everybody thought, what your initial reactions were, and I'll kick us off. I enjoyed my experience with this film. I think I know some people don't like the phrase quote unquote high art. I think it is a movie that is elevated above the popcorn stature of comics derivative films. That being said, I don't think it was successful in what it was attempting to do. But I do think it was a valid attempt. I would encourage people to see this with the caveat that it's got some issues with the filmmaking. But I'm glad to see directors and writers try to bring out the more nuanced notions of these narratives into the big screen. It's fun times.
I think it's a beautifully shot film. It's beautifully acted. It's beautifully scored. There might be a couple of issues with the overall story, but it is a look at a single man's descent into madness. Okay. And that's what the film tried to be, in my opinion.
Yeah. Do you you said that's what it tried to be. You think it was successful in that?
I do think that it was successful in portraying this crazy man's descent into dark madness.
Okay.
I thought it was fine. No, it's interesting because whenever this first got announced, I found a list of other things to check out for Joaquin Phoenix and everything, and he did a really good job of portraying this role. Yeah. It's really interesting also that the person that directed The Hangover.
Yep.
Yeah, did this.
Yep.
And I do kind of feel like Caleb said, that he just kind of I don't know, he had an idea, but it didn't flesh out very well.
Yeah.
It's how what I gathered from it, what I thought it was have pity for the, kid that gets bullied and shoots up the school, essentially.
That's not what it was.
That's
justifiable that's justifiable that people can interpret it that way.
It is justifiable that you could, but it's
it was also kind of interesting because I went and saw it with two other people, with a couple, and one of them it's kind of that whole thing of you have the same opinions for somebody because you hang out with them for so many years, and then you kind of don't see each other as often, so you start gaining opposite opinions. So, they saw this movie how I used to see it as entertainment and really entertained by just over the top violence and stuff like that. But that's not, what they're doing. There are movies for that.
Yeah.
But and then the other, their significant other thought we were walking into a DC Comics movie. So it was kind of three shades of the spectrum there.
Right.
Yeah.
I could definitely see how different people could watch this movie and come up with different interpretations.
Yeah. So.
Matt?
So I liked this story when it was done the right way, in a better way.
Taxi Driver?
Taxi Driver.
Yeah.
You want to see this story done the right way and it be entertaining. Taxi Driver's your movie. This was a pale imitation of Taxi Driver. I just felt this was pretentious, boring as fuck. I was like, oh God, how much? I kept checking my watch. I was like, oh God, how much longer do I have? And the basis of, portraying the Joker as clinically mentally ill cheapens the character. That means that the Joker is curable. The Joker's mentally ill, so if the Joker had therapy and the right medication, he's curable. That's how you address mental illness. That's not the Joker. The Joker's not curable. The Joker is evil, not crazy. He's evil. So portraying him as somebody who's mentally ill and reacting to a society that's not giving him enough attention as a mentally ill person cheapens the character, and you're using the character to promote your mental illness, agenda. I mean, I felt that scene where he's on the show, the only thing he was missing was a literal soapbox to stand on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, get the fuck out of here.
But I think that was what it was. What I think that was intentional.
I know it was intentional. I'm like, this is ridiculous. It was, that movie. Oh God. Yeah. No,
so
thank
not
you.
a fan. Okay. So we got 1 loved it, 2 solidly enjoyed it, had some issues, and 1 strongly.
Well, now let me say though, the execution, the cinematography was great.
Yes. Yeah,
the soundtrack was spot on.
Yeah.
The acting was, it was a well executed movie, but what it wanted to be was ham fisted.
Yeah.
And this is the same problem I had with the Punisher series. They use a well established character to promote a different agenda. The Joker has been what the Joker has been for decades, and the popularity has been built up and earned. And then somebody in Hollywood grabs it and uses it to do something of their own. It's gross to me.
So with that being said, so I said beforehand when we were watching like the trailers and stuff, and one of the comments that I remember making is that if I go in here thinking that this is the Joker, I'm not going to enjoy it as much. If I go in here thinking it's detached from the Joker and it's related to, like, there's just enough connotations there to pull that in without directly dipping this into DC continuity, I was going to enjoy it a lot more. And if that had been the case in this film, I would have absolutely thought that it did. What cheapened this to me was the creation of the DC universe outside of it. One of the main characters in this story is Bruce Wayne's father, Thomas Wayne. I didn't need that in the film. They could have given me a different. I didn't need, as with everything in Batman, you have to see a string of pearls get broken. I didn't need that.
I will say that I felt that the Batman stuff in it was forced. The Wayne storyline was forced in it. I was glad that they didn't go the route of making him his brother like they had insinuated. So I agree with that part of it was definitely forced.
So and with that, that's one of the main plot points, and one of the things that further helps push him towards this breaking point. I mean, beyond the breaking point, is that his mother used to work for Thomas Wayne in some capacity. We don't ever really know what her job was. We don't know if she was some type of secretarial agent or if she was low level, if he even knew who she was. But in her mind, she also deals with mental illness. And she has created this idea of her having an affair with Thomas Wayne. Whether she did or not, again, up for debate. He says it didn't happen. She says it did. Who can say? Who can say these things? It's part of what the questionability of the whole scenario is part of the artistry of this film. And she has been trying to blackmail Thomas Wayne in some sense to get money because they're living in destitution. This elderly woman who's got medical issues and her middle-aged son who have medical issues are living alone in an inner city apartment. They're not living well. And so she's continued to try to reach out to write these letters. And one thing that she does is she says, my son is actually your son because we had an affair. But of course, again, spoiling things, this can't be true because she actually adopted Arthur. Arthur's not her child. So his mental illness, his psychosis, his need for psychiatric treatment is not genetic. It's actually, at least that we know of, there's a big insinuation here that it's the product of nurture, not nature, because one of her ex-husbands or boyfriends or something abused him as a child, at least physically, possibly sexually. There's a little bit of an idea that happened, but at the very minimum, he chained this child to a radiator and beat the shit out of him. Prior to him like really understanding this world. So it's kind of led. So again, that's one of the questions of this film is mental illness a product of nature? Is it the product of nurture? Is it the product of the environment? Is it a little bit of both? Is it the environment like triggering some things in humans in the way that we do, in the way that we see things and live, that we have predilections for? And I think it did a really good job showing that, even if I don't agree with the stance that the film was trying to make. I think it did a good job in showing that. Now, what I didn't like didn't come out of Arthur's viewpoint. It came out of what the film was saying. I think that they made some. I mean, it would be wrong and both right for me to say I think this film was shot through through a Fox News commentator's idea of how the world is. Again, that's the cheap version of what I would want to say. I could extrapolate on that, but essentially what this movie, and I know Craig is going to disagree with this, what this movie does a lot of work telling you is that women can't be trusted, that people don't see you, and therefore you're on some level entitled to lash out. Maybe not in the way that you are, that he did, but you, on some level, you're entitled to lash out for that. That political movements, especially political movements that stem out of minority populations, which are essentially the poorer populations in the world, are equivalent on some level to the deranged psychosis of a murderer. And I think that's what the movie does a really good job of saying, and I disagree with those things. I think what the movie wanted to say was that on some level, the lies that we're told as children follow us into adulthood, that mental illness does affect people in different ways. I think there was a subline in this film that says that violence, especially gun violence, is not the fault of the gun, but it's the fault of the people wielding the gun. Because Arthur gets a gun given to him by a gun owner to protect himself, and then uses it for other ways.
Was it given to him?
That's a good question.
Because
that's a good
the guy told the boss that Arthur bought it from him.
Yeah.
So
yeah, because there is an idea of what's real, that like this film plays with what's real and what's not real. What is his reality? So I don't know.
I mean, I don't disagree with everything you're saying there. There are certainly, I agree with the Me Too movement part of the aspect that it could have been done better. That section of it could have been done better. You had made a comment previously about, he latched on to the neighbor woman because of her skin color. Yeah. He didn't say that today, but you said it on Facebook.
Yeah, for sure.
He didn't latch on to her because of anything other than he saw a kindred soul when she mimicked shooting herself in the elevator. That's what made him latch on. Her skin color was completely coincidental.
It was to him. It wasn't for the film making aspect. To him, it may have been coincidental. The only woman
but you're watching the movie through the eyes of him.
No, you're watching the movie through somebody who is around him. Like you see moments that feature him. You also see moments that feature real people.
No, you don't. He's in every scene of that.
No,
movie.
He's in every scene, but you're not watching it through his eyes. You're watching it surrounding his ideas.
But it's his point of view.
It is in some ways. It is, but that's one of the things that I think the movie purposefully did. Like in this movie, and this is what a friend of ours named Rick, I was having this conversation with him, and he was kind of saying the same thing. Like, no, that's just that could have been anybody. For instance, the doctor in the beginning of the film, that could have been anybody.
She wasn't a doctor.
Well, she was writing his prescription, so
no,
I don't
she
know
wasn't.
about that.
He asked her.
That was a social worker.
He asked her to ask the doctor for more medicine.
So she was just calling it in.
Yes, but she wouldn't because who knows how many times he had upped his medication already. Yeah. And they have, an obligation not to just continue to. So again, we're seeing this whole movie through his perspective. And I want to say something here before I go much further. I do agree with Matt. This isn't the Joker that we know.
Yeah.
And I had to disassociate myself from it being the Joker from the comics for me to enjoy the film for what it was.
I feel like the trailers established that, though.
Yeah.
I feel like anybody who rolled into this not expecting this to be the DC Comics Joker, you didn't watch the trailers or something. There was some disassociation there because I think it really did set up no, this isn't that.
See, I think that's they don't get a pass for that. I mean, you don't get to rip off a character that's earned so much for so many decades. You don't get to rip that off and me just say, that's okay. No, make your own fucking character. Make your own movie. Don't grab onto something else and give me a shitty cover song.
See, and that's where I wish they hadn't have injected so much of the Batman.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
They use the popularity of something else to make their own piece of shit.
I think instead of using the Waynes, if they'd used, and I can't think of Hush's family's name, but they're kind of the opposite version of the Waynes, but also rich. If they'd used them instead, it would have been kind of a more interesting.
Yeah. I want to get back to the thing that we were just talking about.
Yeah. I didn't mean to.
No, you're good.
So, yeah.
Yeah, geez, Matt, derailing us. Don't you
my
ever
thoughts
speak up
on it are that the whole thing is seen through his fucked up perspective. And yes, the movie's showing stuff, and as an audience, you're expecting some results, but to me, it's coming from his perspective. So he latched on to her 1,000% because of her, he thought she was mentally ill like him. And it had nothing to do with her color.
See, I don't agree with that in totality. I agree with that in part.
Okay. So the doctor at the beginning, or the counselor at the beginning, if you're watching this and feeling sympathetic for him because she's not doing more or could have, there's only so much a social worker can do. When the city shuts down funding, she's just a social worker. She has no way to give him a prescription. He's got a prescription, but he can't pay for it.
Right.
You know, presumably he's already got a prescription called in, you know, and if you go get a prescription and your prescription's ran out, they call the doctor and the doctor just renews it. In that case, that's what would happen.
Yeah.
We're assuming that he couldn't get it because there was no longer funds to pay for his, which we don't know that's the case either. He had a job,
and we can only work with what the film actually tells us.
And there's one point in the film that he says he feels better without the medication. So we don't know that he quit taking that. It's easy to take and look at this film and go, well, it's the social worker's fault for not increasing his medication, not making sure he was.
No, it's not easy.
All of this is on him.
Yeah.
And I watched this film. Never once did I feel sorry for him.
No.
Never once did I think that he had an excuse for being a madman. He made all of those decisions. He started making those decisions when he was still on his medication.
Ooh, that's a dangerous stance to take, because what you're saying is he's mentally ill because of his decisions?
No. That's not what
so
I'm
what
saying.
do you mean?
I'm saying that he's mentally ill already, but to blame he made these decisions regardless of that. He was on medication, presumably, when he shot those guys.
I didn't take that. And yeah, like, we'd have to look at the timeline and we would have to directly ask, but I do think at the point that he did that, he'd been at least not taking his medications for a few days.
I don't think that was the case. I don't think they'd cut the funding yet. It was after that they cut the funding.
Yeah, it was after that.
And it may not have been.
Now we never see him take his medication throughout the film, so we don't know if he's actually on it or not. But if he's taking his medication, and presumably the medication is helping him.
But he had already started his delusions before that. Like, part of that, when he was on the show, on the Robert De Niro show.
Yeah, he was delusional.
He was like, that was showing that the medication was wearing off. Like he was slipping into this psychosis. It again, we're talking about the descent into madness.
That
he
is
was
true.
already starting to descend in this place because he'd quit taking his medications. Now, the thing with the doctor, like we were talking about, that I made the comment about the representation of the black bodies in this film and in film in general. The only woman in this movie who is not a woman of color is the mother. And she is a liar from the get-go in his brain. Like, he doesn't know why she did what she did, assumedly part of her own mental illness, but she can't be trusted. Then you get this a young African-American woman who, yes, does make the thing, she puts the trigger to her head and she does the trick, but also he sees in her a good mother who is providing for her daughter in a way that his mother did not provide for him.
He doesn't know his mom's insane at that point.
He doesn't know his mom's insane.
He thinks that his mom is great at that point.
Right, but no, because he is taking care of her. Like, his mother is a burden on him in some way, and like, there's some animosity. Like, he's enjoying her time, but they have a strained relationship. Even in the beginning of the film, when he's on his medication, they have a strained relationship. Like, it's not all flowers.
He talks about that he loves taking care of his mom.
Right. He also feels like he has to. And so he sees in Zazie
I think you're
Beetz
projecting.
I could be.
I didn't read that into it, Caleb. I have to say, I didn't read that. I didn't see any sense of burden in him.
It wasn't until the end when he found out she was lying that he lost his shit with his mom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't pick up on that.
Well, I mean, but again, like by the end of the film, that even the mother has let him down. Like, all the women in some way let him down.
For sure.
Whether or not they want to. Now, again, you have three other main women plus two You have
and maybe
social
that's
worker.
bad casting decisions
I
to
think-
make them all women,
I
and
don't-
maybe they did it
I think
intentionally.
that was intentional. I don't think there was any move made in this film that was not directly intentional. I think that they wanted you to see
because you could
Well,
have
everybody
casted a
let him
white-
down in the movie. That's
Yeah,
that's his whole thing.
yeah.
But especially
that's
the
why
women.
his soapbox moment. He comes out and ham-fisted his fucking way through that whole
Yeah.
point.
But it's especially the women that let him down. He gets fired from his job, but that's inherently
It's not just women though that let him down. The guy he works with that gave him the gun, presumably,
he
and then
lied.
lied
Yeah, he
about
lied on
him.
His boss.
But he
The
got
boss
he
let
got
him
fired.
down.
He recognizes that he got fired through his own actions. Like he dropped the gun on the floor. He had the gun with him. So he's being fired
No,
for a direct
if he
reason.
didn't blame that guy, he
Yeah.
wouldn't have stabbed him in the neck with the scissors.
Well, no, I'm saying he blames them, but he still knows that he's responsible for that on some level. The woman in the beginning, we know that she was most likely doing her job. We know that she was most likely doing everything she can.
Mhm.
He is getting extremely frustrated with her because she is in a position of power as a woman of color over him, who has the direct lead to whether or not he gets this medication that he needs. Zazie Beetz, the neighbor, she is a woman of color that he infantilizes. He envisions himself in a relationship with her on some level as the big happy family that he never has. And she denies him that access because she doesn't quote unquote see him. At the end of the movie, you have another woman of color who is again the doctor in this sense that's working in the hospital that is essentially the person who is the gatekeeper to whether or not he exists in the world, and he murders her. And
so I don't
casting
disagree
directions
with the
were
counselor
direct.
and the doctor. My disagreement is with the Zazie Beetz character.
Okay.
And I think he believed he saw a kindred soul, and then he went into this delusion about her being in this relationship with her.
Okay.
But that's my take on it. I'm not saying you're
No,
wrong.
that's what's great about this movie is that it is up for interpretation.
Yeah,
on some levels.
And you're probably right. I don't know because I haven't read any interviews with the casting director or the director on this to find out if they intentionally casted people of certain sexuality or gender and color and race in different positions. You may very well be correct.
They did, yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm saying I don't know. You're and maybe they did. And if they did, then they did that on, there's an intentional thing there.
Mm-hmm.
If they, it could just, because to me, almost with the exception of his neighbor, they could have all been any gender or any color. And his neighbor could have been any color as well.
They could have been, but they weren't.
But
That's
they
what I'm
weren't.
saying. If this film is trying to be capital A art, this film is trying to be this high level of artistry in filmmaking. It's trying to be something that Kubrick made. It's trying to be a Lars von Trier
Trying to be
era
Taxi
film.
Driver with a clown mask.
It's trying to be Taxi Driver. Like it's trying to be this big A film. And in all of those films, it's what the verbiage I used with our friend is every book that you see on the shelf matters because every book is saying something. Every street sign says something. Every piece of graffiti that you see says something. There's all of these subliminal, subversive messages in these type of films. And the same is not true for big blockbuster films. The same is not true for the films you go and you watch just for shits and giggles and fun. But in these big A art films, they are.
Okay.
And specifically
That's
for
fair.
this film, the graffiti that you see, the real subversive work in this film is being done by the set direction. It's being done by the art department. When you see signs, like there's one part where he's walking by and the graffiti says racist. There's one part where you're walking by and I forget what the street name was, but the street name says something. The graffiti that you see says something. The branding on the drinks and the food that you see in his apartment is saying something. And that's what makes this film this next level art movie. And I do think it was successful in being that. It elevated the quote unquote comic book movie to a higher level. Now, I don't think it was successful in the messages that what it was trying to send because I think the message are inherently poorly conceived.
I think that, okay, so I don't want to say I disagree with you because I understand exactly what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
My thought is that you're also seeing it because to me, and I get what you're saying, that you're seeing it from the people around him. But if that were the case, every scene wouldn't be with him in it. So to me, I'm watching this movie through his fucked up viewpoint.
Yeah, and I think you're supposed to pull some out of that. Yeah.
So to me, yes, all of that's happening, but I think you're seeing it through different eyes through the movie.
Well,
and
I
maybe
think-
I'm wrong.
I
Maybe I'm wrong. So I mean, maybe I'm giving it a free pass, and I shouldn't be.
I think what the point Caleb was trying to make on that is you're seeing it from an audience perspective, right? And you're seeing, because like that's why they have all of these moments of him getting on stage, and you're just like, oh God, no, don't do it, because it's supposed to make you feel very uncomfortable
Right.
for him. And I mean, yeah, and it's definitely succeeded at that. And there was like times when the person that I was with that thought that we were going into a comic book movie, you know, was like, oh, I felt so bad for him that they actually like shed tears and stuff for whenever he got up on stage and stuff, and you know, just kind of like it fell through, or like
Maybe I'm just hardened because I never felt bad for him once in the movie. I really didn't. I felt
I did up to a point. I do
Yeah.
feel bad for people who don't have access to mental health
well,
care.
that I mean,
you
I
know.
get that aspect of it, but I also feel like he chose not to have the mental health care access of it.
Ooh.
he didn't really. It was
He
taken
still
from him,
could
though.
take his medicine.
Oh,
He
I think
chose to quit taking his
I
medicine.
think he did choose to quit taking his medicine, but I think that was because it was going to run out anyway. And
Maybe.
he like he told the social worker, like, you're not listening to me.
Well-
the neighbor woman, you don't see me. And
Okay.
I'm curious whether or not
Maybe-
he killed her or not.
Yeah, the neighbor.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay, maybe I could be wrong. Guys. I'm not
No,
saying
time
that.
out.
I'm not saying that. No, let me finish for a second. I'm not saying that I don't care about his mental health aspect of it, because I do. I'm very, very concerned about the mental health status in this country, and for people and able to get access to their medicine. I mean, I'm a diabetic.
Yeah.
Access to medicine's an important thing. But never once in this movie did I feel sorry for him. And maybe I should have. Maybe I need to rewatch it. Maybe I saw something wrong.
I would just want to reiterate, there is no right or wrong. Like, and that's again, with this type of art film, there is no right or wrong.
Well, when you
answer.
have
It's-
people
it's
cringing
all
sitting
up
at the same table when
for
I say something, maybe I'm totally off
No, I
base.
don't think so.
I didn't necessarily say that I was cringing. I was saying that those
Oh,
scenes
he cringed.
were
Visibly cringed.
Yeah.
A lot.
I'm saying like those scenes were filmed to make you do that.
Yeah.
To elicit that response.
They were.
Yeah.
The film, and again, this is part of, is this film third person? Is it first person? I generally think as far as the medium goes, any film that is not shot in the first person viewpoint or in found footage film is asking you to read it in third person. So it's asking you to say, it's he walked to the door instead of I walked to the door. It's saying he pulled out the gun instead of
If that were the
I pulled out
case, then
gun.
we would have known clearly at the beginning that he wasn't dating the girl.
I'm saying, but that's part of the third person point of view. Is it's asking you to pull back and forth, and it's showing you some of what he sees. But the film can do that in the way that literature can't. I think comics can do that in a different way as well. Like in a comic, you get the best of both worlds. You can have the third person point of view and the art showing you a first person point of view, and in a sense, this is merging those two things, and it's asking you to be able to zoom in and zoom out and decide for yourself which is which, because the whole question of this up into the last 30 minutes is this reality for us, the audience, or is this reality for Arthur?
See, and maybe that's my whole take on it is I don't feel bad for him because I don't know what the reality of the movie is.
And I think
I don't know what's really happening. I feel bad for the situation for sure. But I'm never once sympathetic thinking, oh, well, maybe I'm just wrong. I mean, from the very beginning of it, he's unhinged, so maybe I'm just wrong. Maybe I need to watch it again. Maybe I missed something.
I mean, again, I don't think there's a right or wrong. It's all an interpretive thing. Like there are lots of people on the internet, obviously, that come out with a very, very different viewpoint.
Well, I feel like I'm coming across as being callous towards mental health, and that's not my case at all.
No, I think you're coming. I think what you're saying is that in a situation where there is accessible mental health, that people should go out and seek it. And I think from your point, what you're saying is he made the choice to not take his medication, and therefore these things happened. On the other hand,
maybe I'm wrong. Maybe my timeline's wrong on it. I mean, and that very well could be the case.
I don't know. I think it's worth a
But
second watch.
again, as you were saying, the delusion started before he stopped taking the medication anyway. So maybe I need to rewatch it, because to me, it played out is
Well, and
I mean, at some point he loses his job, so he doesn't have money to access his medicine. So at that point,
another important thing to keep in mind, though, this is early 80s. This is 1981. We don't know what that medication was. Obviously, in 2019, we've, as far as pharmaceutical goes, we've gained a lot of ground in treating mental illness through chemical functions. But we don't know what that medication was. We do know that they had upped the dosage so much because it wasn't working for him. So it already.
No, we don't know that they upped it at all.
Well, they said that, like, I think, didn't she make a comment about he was almost maxed out on what they could give him or something?
Oh,
yeah.
I don't recall.
Yeah, there was a line in there. So it was showing that, like, what they were doing was not working up until that point, and then
I mean, to me,
completely.
Where I feel sorry for him is we don't know why he was in the hospital to begin with when he's banging his head on the wall. To me, where I feel sorry for him is maybe it's making a commentary on when Reagan lowered the standards for mental health and let a bunch of people out into the world that didn't deserve to be, and that's a completely different subject.
Well, again, that's the subtext, and that's the part in this film. The subtext to me is doing or attempting to do the work. And so, when I watch a film like this,
maybe it failed in some situations.
I try to look more into the subtext of what's happening. That's why I was so fascinated by what was being written in the graffiti in the background and what was on the labeling and stuff of it, because that's where I think this was.
Well, I just want to be clear once again. I am not unsympathetic to the
I don't think
mental health
I don't think it came off that way.
People out there. Well, I want to don't at me on Facebook or on social media, because I'm 100% sympathetic to mental health in this country. For some reason, I didn't find any sympathy in this character, though, for whatever reason.
And I think that's a good thing. Like, I didn't come off as sympathetic towards him at all, because, again, I also didn't come off. I do think the film wanted you to be, but I didn't come off as sympathetic to him. I feel sympathy for the lead up there, but again, I think that
there's at one point where he embraces it, in my opinion.
I'm not sympathetic in the way that the film asks me to be sympathetic. I'm sympathetic in a totally different way that lives outside of that. But I do think the intent of this film was saying, hey, like, look how bad society treats people like this. This is your fault.
The film saying that through his perspective. And I think that's where our viewpoint differs.
Maybe.
Because to me, it's saying that I don't disagree with you, but I feel like it's saying that through his perspective. Yeah. It's the same thing as anybody in incels that are, well, the girl doesn't pay attention to me, so I can beat her, or whatever. This mentality that they're lesser than you because they don't pay attention to you. But it's from his viewpoint, not from society's necessarily. But that's where
is nobody else repulsed by the idea of that take on the Joker? Like, you pick up a Joker comic book, boy, if his neighbor had paid more attention to him, we would never have the Joker.
No,
nobody else repulsed.
I don't feel
by
that that's the case.
But that's his take. That was his screaming take on the show. Is this is what happens when you ignore someone with a mental illness?
Oh yeah, I mean, I get that.
Is anybody else repulsed by that idea of they're using that as the Joker? Yeah, I mean, that's repulsive.
Yes,
to me.
But here's why I think this is a different Joker than what we've got with the '89 Batman Joker. I think this is a different Joker than what Heath Ledger
it
portrayed.
is. Yeah,
I think that because the Joker is such a fluid and diverse and legendary character, we don't have a real take on what it is. Also, this is not the Joker, it's just Joker. And so even though the film really in a ham-fisted way tied it into the Batman mythology, I don't think this is the Joker. I think this is Joker.
That is extremely generous of you. I mean, he's literally the Waynes are in the movie.
No, I agree.
I mean,
But again, you can be talking about an Elseworlds tale. Like, we have this in comics all day long.
No,
There's 1,000 different ways
No,
to do
I
that.
totally, my problem is, this is Hollywood. I find this offensive. Hollywood thinking they are going to take this thing and elevate it. That's offensive to me. We're going to take this thing that was created and developed over decades by all these different creators. Now here's our take. Here's Hollywood's gift to you to elevate this thing. That's the way these things feel to me. And
there's a million different takes on the Joker.
I know that, but the people in the comic book industry have earned the right to do that to me. Hollywood, this guy made the fucking Hangover movies.
There's 4 or 5 different takes in the movies alone. Every version of the Joker is different from the television series all the way through to this.
Yeah, one. And this is so ham-fisted though. This one is so ham-fisted. He's mentally ill from 8. I mean, they're just hammering this mentally ill thing.
It's
You know,
got
and
an
the other
agenda.
ones, you know, you can say, well, is this guy really crazy or is he not? You know, you have that, you know, but there's no doubt in this. He's just mentally ill,
Yeah.
and he
Well,
needs
it goes-
treatment. And if he had treatment, we wouldn't have Joker. Really?
See, and that's where I don't feel like I don't feel that if this character even had his, as Caleb said, he was already delusional under his treatment.
Yeah,
He
I
was
get
slowly
it. But
So
my thing is
Sorry, I
The-
know you've had
No,
your
you're
finger
fine.
up for 10
The-
minutes.
the character, the Joker, being not mentally ill is the truly scary one, because that is, you cannot cure evil.
But you can make an argument that every version of the Joker has some mentally ill aspect to him. Criminally insane.
you could, as a debate, you could, but there's no debating this movie. He says,
I
I'm
don't know.
mentally ill.
I think the movie is a debate
He
in and
says
of
that.
itself.
He says that, but I can probably find comic book references where he says that he's mentally ill.
I saw someone else say it, and I completely agree that like the best origin of the Joker or the best version of the Joker is the one that we don't know.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, just him not
100%.
having an origin
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
probably the best thing for that
Absolutely.
character.
I will
100%.
make an argument that we still don't know based
No.
on this
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
we don't. Again, this is not.
No, believe me, I'm going to pretend like I don't
And,
know
and,
about
and
this
I
movie.
actually had a question. Interesting, kind of, to get us out of the moral ambiguity of the movie and everything that it does to you. What do you think the Batman that spawns from this movie would be like?
The one in the Snyder universe where he has all the machine guns. That's the same kind of asshole that would make Batman. Yeah.
Because I mean, like a Bruce Wayne that grew up in this time where all these like people dressed as clowns were going around causing mass chaos, and then I mean, because like the story with the pearls and everything was always like they had a fun night at the movies and they got robbed by somebody, not like the city was on fucking fire.
I do love that they updated the movie to Zorro the Gay Blade.
Yeah, well, it was always supposed to be that.
No, it was Zorro, or the Mask of Zorro.
Mark
of Zorro.
Well, in the first comic, wasn't it?
Zorro the Gay Blade didn't come out till the 80s. So
Oh,
there's
was
no,
it? Okay.
Yeah, Zorro the Gay Blade
I just saw
is
Zorro.
Yeah, it was Zorro the Gay Blade on the
marquee.
Okay, gotcha.
on the marquee when they come out, which cracks me up to think that the Waynes would be at a movie, Zorro the Gay Blade, which is a ridiculous spoof of Zorro.
A lot of ridiculous in this movie.
There was
Couldn't
some
help
good.
it.
To answer your question, Jerry. I think this movie intended, and again, I can make arguments for this, and there's people who can make arguments against it. I think this film intended to be a precursor to the '89 Batman. In the '89 Batman, the character who was representative of Joe Chill was actually Napier, who, if you read the comics, is another version of a person who could be the Joker. Like if you read the Dark Knight or the White Knight series that's going on right now, Napier was the Joker in that original run. There
is a case, a Curse of White Knight, where the Joker is insane and medication cured him.
Yeah,
in the comic books.
So that's what I think it is, because you're seeing this connection with in this you're seeing a connection with
No,
the Joker.
okay, I'll interrupt then. I'll interrupt. Sorry. So I was going to let you talk, but he's forcing me to interrupt. That's what I'm saying is the comic book industry has earned the right to do that kind of thing. And that's what pisses me off about Hollywood. They haven't earned the right to take the character and make these radical.
They bought the rights to make that.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I don't know that any so here's
Art
the
is
question.
art, man.
Oh, man.
When it was written, I don't know that Alan Moore had earned the right to do anything that he did. I don't know that Alan Moore earned the right to do anything with when he shot Batgirl in the back of the head and paralyzed her. The right is earned through time. Now, going forward,
No, in her
do I
back,
think
not in her head.
Going forward, do I think that this guy needs to make any more Joker movies? No. And I'd be fine with somebody else doing it, but I don't know that it's a right to be earned. Like I said, I don't know why Alan Moore gets to do it in the 70s, or why Frank Miller gets to do it when those guys are just now burgeoning to change these iconic 80-year-old characters, and another person doesn't just because it's a different medium. I disagree with that wholly. The other side of that is, to your argument, what the argument that this movie is making with the possibility of being cured with that mental illness is the same argument Batman uses in every single Joker book. That's why he won't kill him, because he still hopes that there's a cure. It's the same argument.
Oh,
that
he doesn't
Batman-
kill because he doesn't kill.
No, but the Joker is the closest person he's came to, and he keeps saying over and over again, I don't do this because everybody is redeemable, and that's why he doesn't kill. Everybody can be cured. There's redemption for everyone. That's his inherent belief.
Yeah, we've read some different Batman stories.
I
there's several books. He's like, he's not crazy. He's evil. Batman has said those very
It
things.
depends. It
those very
depends
words.
on who's writing.
Which Batman book is being written. So,
Yeah. Calling the Joker crazy dumbs the character down, and that's what boils down to this movie for me. Is it dumbs the character down?
See, I didn't feel that way.
I also think that it, again, crazy, evil. One is a medical diagnosis. The other one is a moral diagnosis. And I think on some level, we're going to get into those both being a lot of the same things. Crazy people can commit evil acts. Evil people can be crazy.
Yeah.
The same is true for all of those. I think it's this weird conglomerate of humanity that gets shifted around that we really don't know enough about. Again, and I also don't think this is saying that this is the definitive character. I think this is saying this is one of many, and that's what I love about the Joker.
Yeah.
So
There's 3 in the DC universe right now.
No. Yeah, don't get me started
So,
on that.
So we've talked about the plot. Let's move away from that though. Award season. Do you think this is getting? I think that
Best actor.
I
best
think
score,
best actor. Yeah, definitely. I think best design,
best score.
best score. Yeah, I don't think it's getting best film by any means.
Oh, hell no.
No, but it will get it. Joaquin Phoenix will definitely get a nod for best actor,
Mm-hmm.
whether he wins it or not. It will definitely get best set design nods. It'll definitely get best score nods. It may even be in the running for best picture. But
who's
it's not going to win best picture.
Like obviously, Joaquin Phoenix is getting because he was such a powerful force in the movie. There was some really amazing supporting acting.
Oh, for
being
sure.
done in this movie. Dude, Frances Conroy as his mom was like that. Like that got me. That took me into a whole new place. Like that was strong on her part. So
Yeah, for sure. The guy that played the little clown, I thought he was great. I thought the guy that gave him the gun.
yeah.
You know what? You know what was a really weak casting choice in my opinion was Thomas Wayne.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was.
All of the Wayne stuff to me could have been removed from the movie.
It should have been.
And it would have been just as good.
Imagine
or
this
better.
movie where the Wayne aspect of things is part of his psychosis, where you don't know if that's real.
We saw
that's a better
Alfred
movie.
with less time, and I
Yeah.
agreed with the Alfred casting way more than the Thomas Wayne casting.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. It just, yeah.
Well, all in all, we're going to put up a thread on our Facebook page where we're going to invite
And
all
please
of
don't
you.
at me about mental health.
It's okay. And come on there and talk to us about what you thought about the film. Let's get a good conversation going, because again, this movie is successful in asking you to think, whether or not the people who made it did any thinking. It's definitely it's inspiring conversations, and those are important conversations. And I think that at the end of the day, if a film does that, then it's worth being made. So come do that. And now we're going to talk about some funny books, talk about some comics. Craig, since we're tired of talking about the Joker, why don't you tell us about a comic?
So, I did You're the Villain, the Joker, of course, published by DC. And I picked this book up because it was written by John Carpenter.
Mm-hmm.
So it's written by John Carpenter and Anthony Birch. Art was Philip Tan, colors by J. David Ramos, and letters by Gabriel Downey. I know you said you read this. Did you read this?
I read it.
Did you read it, Jerry? Okay, so this book starts with the Joker either breaking out of jail or breaking out of Arkham, and he's hanging out with a young man who we learn his name Six of Hearts.
He calls him Of for short.
Yeah, sometimes he called them Hearts too. So he's got his face painted in clown makeup as well, and you find out that Six of Hearts is actually the one narrating this story because it's coming from a mental ill perspective. And so, they're going on and they're doing some things, and the Joker starts to get kind of melancholy because they're in Gotham at this time that Bane's running Gotham, and no one cares that he's doing chaotic things.
Right.
And it's just not fun to him if he's doing these things and no one cares. So he puts a gun to Six of Hearts' heads and tells him to tell him a story, tell him something funny. So Six of Hearts tells him his origin story about his mom, his dad abusing his mom, all of this. And so then they stop at a convenience store to grab some supplies, and the convenience store gets robbed by none other than the Condiment King, who Joker stops and then decides, you know what, since the world is kind of chaotic right now, what if I decide to become the hero? And so he steals Batman and Robin costumes for him and Six of Hearts. And they put on these fucking costumes, and it is some of my favorite panels in comic books.
What the costumes themselves, or the Adam West costume?
Yeah. And they even do the deal where they're scaling up the side of the building, or scaling down the side of the building, like from the television show. It is so fucking amazing. So they go out and they're going to hunt down villains, like the villain of the dude walking his dog. And he stops Six of Hearts from killing the villain, even though Six of Hearts had no intention of killing the villain, because we're heroes. That's the line we don't cross. And then he shoots the man and his dog because they had a gun.
Which they didn't.
Yeah. And so then the Enchantress shows up, and she tells him, hey, just stay out of my way. And he's like, wait, we're heroes too. Don't you want to do a team up with us? And she ignores him and says, just stay out of my way. And so then she becomes their arch nemesis. So he gets on the internet and warns all of Gotham about this witch that's trying to control Gotham and kind of get, and she shows up and says, I told you to stay out of my way, and blah, blah, blah. And he says, well, you'll never convert my crew. And he kills all of his crew rather than let them go to work for him by his poison flowers that he put on them.
Yeah.
And the Six of Hearts is just like, wait, I was kind of mad that you didn't give me a flower, but I guess I'm glad now that you didn't. And so, you know, they do some other stuff, and a lot, you know, some kind of chaotic stuff happens, but I'm going to let you read that in the book. But then Six of Hearts finally gets away from him and realizes that, you know, hey, this has been kind of a crazy night. I'm insane, but this has been a crazy night, and decides to go to his mom's house. Well, this is when he realizes that the Joker is straight up evil and not crazy, because he actually listened to his backstory and is there at his mom's house holding her hostage, waiting for Six of Hearts to get there. They start battling. Joker takes off the Batman mask off of himself and puts it on Six of Hearts. So Six of Hearts is now choking the Joker with a Batman mask on, and the Joker's going, harder, harder. And so Six of Hearts is like, what the fuck? And stops, and Joker gets up and does what Joker does to Robin's when he has a crowbar in his hand, and beats the fuck out of Six of Hearts with a crowbar. And yeah, that's pretty much that story.
He gave him an origin story.
That ending was amazing.
Yeah, it's bloody, it's violent, it's great. This
was a good John Carpenter story.
It was. I picked it up because it was John Carpenter, but it was a fun story. I have a couple of complaints with the story.
Yeah.
I don't think they had to kill the dog.
Yeah, I didn't like that, but
well, that's the point.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. And then they kind of did the incel thing with the Enchantress not.
Yeah.
That was.
You want to talk about ham-fisted? That part was a little ham-fisted.
I didn't care for it because John Carpenter's a Hollywood guy, and Hollywood guys haven't earned the right to do this to the comic book people. So,
but
he did it right. When you do it right, that's okay. That's the thing.
He did do it right.
Overall, I really enjoyed the story, though. It was a fun story. The art, I know we talked about this earlier when you were bringing it. I really liked, especially the panels when they're wearing they first put on the costumes are fucking fantastic,
the
and they're
art is
drawn
amazing.
so
Super
well.
loosely fitting. And
I mean, they're straight up Halloween costumes.
They look like Mego dolls.
Yeah, it's so fucking great.
The panel from the Joker's perspective when Batman is choking him.
Oh, yeah.
that was so good.
And he's like, harder.
Gosh, that was so good.
I mean, he takes off his own mask and puts it on just so he can be in a fight with the Batman.
This was a Joker
The whole
story.
thing was a setup for him to be in a fight with Batman.
Yeah.
It was
It was a great.
And then it gets into the Joker's love of Batman. In my opinion, you know, the whole choke me harder.
Yeah.
And so even the lettering in this book was great, which normally I don't notice lettering unless it's bad. But I thought everything about this book was good.
It was fun.
You should totally get out and read this book if you haven't. If you want a good Joker story
Agreed.
that really delves into the crazy, criminally insane part of Joker, as opposed to the mentally insane part of Joker. Yeah.
Well, and at the end, like the message boils down to, I think that Matt really picked up on and liked, is that the Joker is not insane; he's just evil. But also, the person who comes up with that idea is admittedly insane, so I don't know that you can trust him. Because you kind of have to be insane to think that the Joker's not insane.
Yeah, I mean, they obviously break out of Arkham together, and Six of Hearts is somebody that he's influenced in while they were in Arkham. But yeah, it's fun. And could you imagine the Joker in Gotham where he's doing Jokery stuff and no one gives a fuck? So he's going to decide to be a good guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just there's a lot more that happens in this book than what I told you, but I want you to read it, and I don't want to spoil all of it.
Probably the best book I read this week. Yeah,
it was great. Yeah,
I just like picking on Matt.
Well, and taking the fucking crowbar to a Robin, I mean, that he put in the Robin costume even is just fucking fantastic. Yeah. So,
who wants to go next?
I'll go next.
Very cute.
Even though J.J. Abrams hasn't earned the right to write Spider-Man.
That's true.
But that's a fantastic fucking book.
So Spider-Man.
We love you, Matt.
This little. I think it's a 5-issue series that J.J. Abrams is writing with his son Henry Abrams. They've got Sarah Pichelli doing the art. Elisabetta D'Amico. Yeah. D'Amico, thank you. Inking, Dave Stewart on colors, which is always a good thing, and VC's Joe Caramagna. So our story picks up as lots of Spider-Man stories do. He's fighting a villain, and Mary Jane's kind of in the middle of this. It looks like they may be close to the Brooklyn Bridge, and he is fighting this like crazy. It's a villain that I've never seen before, so I'm assuming that they created it for this story. And he's this just giant hulking robot character, and he's got all these little minions that almost look like xenomorphs from the Alien series. And Peter's just getting his ass whooped. Like, his entire right arm is just super fucked up, and there are bones popping out of it. Like, he's super fucked up. He gets like swarmed by these things. He's telling MJ's there. He's telling her to run, and then he sees you see a close up of her face, and she's got like a tear, and there's like a little word bubble that says tiger, and then you see that this villain has impaled her.
Ooh,
yeah, and then he throws her off the bridge, and Peter catches her, and there's still all these villains to contend with. And the big mastermind's telling them to get him, and then after that it cuts to a funeral for MJ. So you're assuming that he won against this threat so far, and
this happens to him from time to time.
Yes, but MJ's dead, and he's sitting there with his son. You're assuming it's his son because it's a little kid that he's holding hands with. And he's got red hair, and he's missing his arm. So this fight took its fucking toll.
It sounds like it.
Then we fast forward to 12 years later. We find out that the kid's name is Ben. Of course, if Peter was to ever have a son and name him, it would always be named after his uncle. And I'm imagining that this story takes place in high school. They kind of, fast track you on to what his life is like, in the day of Ben Parker. He pretty much does the Parker thing and stops a bully, but he overextends and throws the bully through a door, breaking the door, and then gets in trouble, and his dad has to come pick him up. And you kind of get this version of Peter who's, that defeat was really hard on him, and he just doesn't seem like he's got the fight in him anymore. And it seems like he's always busy and always working, because Ben mentions, I thought you were out of town. He's like, well, I'm between flights right now. So he came to pick him up and take him back to Aunt May. And they kind of get into it, and, Ben just pretty much says, I can walk from here. You'll be late for your flight. So he just gets out and walks the rest of the way. And that's kind of the end of their back and forth here. You kind of see their relationship, because he's almost like an estranged father to him, because he's always, on the run and working and everything. Another thing that I thought was kind of interesting is, in a world in the Marvel universe, you have all this technology and everything. So you would think that they could make an easy prosthetic for him. But he just kind of has like the simple hook type thing. So I'm wondering if there's more to that as well. Why he didn't take like a more advanced cybernetic type thing.
Yeah, that's.
Maybe they'll get into that later. Maybe I'm just looking too far into it. Then we get this nice panel of Ben trying to open the door and his hand getting stuck to it, and then him basically pulling the door into splinters. He seems fairly surprised, so it might. At first, I was thinking okay, he's had to live with these powers all of his life, and of course, he would inherit his dad's abilities. But he seems very surprised at this whole act of destroying the door. So it's probably a thing of it being activated by puberty or something of that nature.
Does that make him a mutant?
Kind of.
Yeah, kind of, sort of.
In the same way Franklin Richards would be.
So, then we get a scene with him laying on his bed with a picture of his mom. Aunt May comes in and asks him, what happened to the door, and he says, the old one called me names, and she's like, oh, well, I didn't like that one either. Anyway, so, he's still kind of got that humor that Peter had. We get a nice little scene with him in detention for, fighting back against the bully. He meets this girl named Ito Fey, and they just kind of have a back and forth about being misfits. Then we see the villain that Peter was fighting at the very beginning, and there's at the beginning of the book you could have thought that this was completely like an automaton, completely robotic, but we see now that his face is human. He's even eating, so we know that he at one point used to be human, and he's kind of got the Victor Freeze a la canister thing with a woman in it. Yeah, that you can tell that he's probably trying to heal her or something of that nature. We kind of cut to this back and forth of May and Peter on the phone, talking to each other about Ben, and you need to spend more time with him. He's starting to go through those changes. Then there's a dream sequence of Ben seeing his mom, and there's just blood everywhere, and he's asking for her help, and when he wakes up from his nightmare, he's stuck to the ceiling, and Aunt May comes in, and he's like, I don't know what's going on, I'm on the ceiling, and she's just like, oh, okay, well, there's something you probably need to see. So she takes him up to the attic, and there's this removable panel, and she gives him this box, and it's got Peter's press pass and all these photos of him and Mary Jane and baby pictures of Ben and everything. And then the last thing he pulls out of it is the Spider-Man costume. Yeah. And she, Aunt May is like, you'll, go up there, look under this panel, and you'll find what you need. So it's kind of like the world hasn't had a Spider-Man for probably 12 years since his defeat. So Aunt May is it seems like going to maybe nurture him into taking up that role.
Nice.
Yeah, but it was
a well written book.
it was, and the art was stunning.
It's a cool father-son story written by a father-son.
father-son,
Yeah, like
yeah.
this is what I wanted. That I think this is what they wanted also when Matt Wagner and Brennan Wagner were doing the Batman book that they kicked Brennan Wagner off of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and even though
So-
J.J. Abrams doesn't have the right to write this character, Henry Abrams, I think, did a fairly good job.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely going to be picking up all the issues of this. If for nothing else, Dave Stewart's colors.
Yeah.
You can't not buy Dave Stewart.
No.
I was very skeptical. You know, anytime you have anyone from Hollywood or from that,
They haven't earned
genre,
the right, so yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, you definitely have that, but there's always like,
Wow, guys.
you know, are they
Sorry,
going to do
Matt.
a good job on this? Because we've definitely seen things like that.
Yeah,
in the
anytime you
past.
get somebody writing comics who's not a comics writer, it's always iffy. Like I always like them to stick an actual comic, and we're giving Matt shit. Matt has a very good point. Like we're just rubbing it in because we're friends.
We're just messing with it.
But-
sorry, Matt.
When people who aren't comics writing is not script writing. Comics writing is not prose writing. It's an entirely different way of writing.
Well, that's why, for instance, the Joker book had a second writer on
Yeah,
it
like-
because they kind of give the story idea and then they give it to a
Mhm.
script writer to write it.
and that
So
to me
it's-
is when you get the better versions
Right.
of that.
Now the one thing that we didn't see from Ben that we knew that Peter had was his smarts, like the science knowledge and stuff like that. So I'm wondering, like, if he's going to eventually be Spider-Man, is he going to come into that somehow, like the web shooters and everything, or what's
Good
what's gonna
question.
go on?
Yeah, Peter may help him.
Yeah, we will definitely see.
Nice.
The second issue actually comes out next week.
Oh, sweet. Awesome. What'd
So-
you read this week?
Well, I read Doctor Doom #1 by Christopher Cantwell, Salvador LaRocca, Guru Effects, and letters by Corey Pettit. So I'm going to talk about this book because I kind of feel obligated to talk about it. I didn't hate it. I just want to say that I didn't hate it. It's just I feel compelled to talk about this book because we haven't had a Doctor Doom
Yeah.
that a lot of people want
It wasn't
in a long time.
written by the guy that directed Hangover.
No. Good placement, bro. So, do you write your own material?
Sometimes.
You write them down before you come on the show?
No, it just comes to me.
No, I see your cards. So this wasn't a bad book. I definitely want to say that it was written well. I'd say it was about 80% of a Doctor Doom that I would look for. But it opens with Doctor Doom being interviewed on what seems to be an infotainment TV show. We're all familiar with these. And he's trying to warn against the dangers of a new artificial black hole waste depository that's been built on the moon.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's called the Antlion Project. And he's frustrated because one of the show anchors keeps interrupting him when he's trying to make his point, so he just bails from the TV show. Calls the guy a picnic ant and then cut himself off from the feed.
Sounds like Dr. Doom.
That's a Victor thing to do.
Yeah. Like I said, about 80%. So he's then the next scene shows him in his private study, Dr. Doom in his bathrobe, which is a little off-putting. And
Does he still have the helmet on?
yes, he does. I was just about to make that point. He still has it's not, and it's not just a helmet. It is a full-on metal mask, neck and all.
Yeah.
Anywho,
The Snuggie of Doom.
it is, in pops Kang. Kang doesn't know why he's appeared there. He doesn't know what timeline he's in. And Doom tells him he suspects he's probably damaged his own chromosomes from time traveling so much. So for this reason, he's of little use to Doom because Doom can't prod him for information on what's going to happen in the future. So they just sit there and drink Cavassier together for a little bit. And then we see Doom preparing for bed, and there's a song playing in the background as he's folding his sheets back. He's like, oh, you're thinking to yourself, okay, why are we seeing this? And he's like having a vision or hallucinating about himself as a family man with kids. And then all of a sudden he sees another vision of the moon exploding in the night sky. Then we jump forward a few weeks, and he's walking through his castle as he's being briefed by a member of his staff as he's being briefed by this member of his staff, he walks through the door into a room, and there, hanging from the ceiling, bound and gagged, is the news anchor that interrupted him a few weeks earlier on the television show. And he's basically letting the man know sooner or later they'll decide to feed him.
Yeah.
So that happens. And then next we see Doom, what looks like he's on like the shore of a beach or maybe some kind of body of water. He's levitating and meditating at the same time, but he's having another vision of himself as a normal family man who's fishing with his son, and they're having normal interactions as a family. That is interrupted when all of a sudden there's a launch of several Latvian warheads, which then proceed into space and destroy the Antlion project and the space station surrounding it. He is caught off guard by this because he did not order any launches, had no intention of attacking this station. But the news, of course, starts to break, and the footage shows some people in some space mecha suits carrying the Latvian flag. So obviously, Doom goes to his headquarters and starts military preparations, also trying to figure out why this has happened. He didn't order a launch. His chief of staff lets him know that their defense system is offline. So he tells his chief of staff, communicate a unconditional surrender. I'm going to turn myself into NATO. I'll be arrested within the hour. And that's how the book ends.
That seems very un-Doom-like.
Yeah, it's like, it doesn't...
So, the thing... First thing that people miss when they write Doom, that I don't understand how you can miss this. He not once refers to himself in the third person. Not once.
Yeah, you got to do that.
How do you miss that?
You got to do that.
It makes me think you didn't research Doom much. If he's not calling himself
Doom.
That immediately takes me out of the Dr. Doom world.
Well, I mean, I didn't read this book, but from your description of it, a whole lot of it didn't sound right to me.
Yeah,
it's like he's envisioning stuff that's not happening, and
where are these visions coming from? Why is he visioning these visions of him as a family man? Where I can look past that, think, okay, maybe we'll get that explanation later. That's why I'm giving it the 80%.
Yeah.
From giving, I was like, because that could come later. Like, okay, why is this? Why is he seeing these things?
They're not giving you the whole picture in the first.
Yeah, because he's not. It's not really coming across like this is what he wants.
This just doesn't sound like the meticulous person that Doom is.
I mean,
no, it doesn't.
In him not going in and just killing his commanders that allowed this launch, even if it wasn't their fault.
Yeah, this is not a Doom with the iron fist.
Yeah, and of course, the Doom surrender thing could be seen two ways. It's like, okay, he's so narcissistic. Okay, you could see someone that's extremely narcissistic think, "Oh, I'm going to surrender."
Yeah,
because I can escape any time. I'm so powerful. My surrender is not a true surrender. Yeah. You could see these being explained later, but the things I can't get past are him not referring to himself in the third person. Yeah. Him being interviewed on a television show took me out of it. I'm like, okay, what? Yeah. But
because all of a sudden he cares about the ecosystems of the moon.
Well, he's on there, and they make a point to say, he's on there basically to say, this tech is based on Tony Stark and Reed Richards working together. Mm-hmm. And he immediately that's really why he's tearing it down. Gotcha, he's like, they're obnoxiously, misdirected and yada yada yada. But
he's not wrong.
But he's not on there. He's not on there banging his fist on his throne saying Doom knows that. He's just not coming across as the megalomaniac narcissist that. So I don't know. I'm going to give it another issue before I make a decision.
I have it at home. Full disclosure: this was going to be our roundtable book of the week, and then we all saw the Joker and decided we were going to talk about it. I don't necessarily care for LaRocca as an artist. So it is LaRocca, isn't that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of his art, so that's going to be a turnoff for me when I do read it. I am going to read it though.
I since you mentioned it, I wasn't crazy about the way he drew Doom's mask. Yeah.
But I've never been a big fan of LaRocca on stuff. He's not bad by any means. It's just not mine.
his choices,
Not my cup of tea.
the quality. I definitely can't knock the quality of the book.
So
He's better than Kudaransky.
That's true. That is that is
take
true.
that. Now, when they did Secret Wars, when Doom came back, Victor didn't have to wear a mask for a while, and then he went back to the mask. Is he disfigured again? Do we know, or is he just wearing the mask because he wants to be Doom?
He removes the mask right about when he's crawling into bed.
Who's gonna ask?
And it's it's shadow drawn, but it looks like the scarred, burnt,
Okay, so
Doom of.
I couldn't remember if something happened and something happened to redisfigure him or not, but
That would have been in the Iron Man book. Yeah, I didn't
and I
read
kind
that.
of dropped off.
Yeah, I
of
did
it,
too.
so.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, if you're a Doom fan, I would recommend picking it up, see what you think. But, I'm going to give it probably one more issue.
Yeah.
Unless there's something really special happens in issue number 2. Yeah.
There's a lot of people that think that Doom is going to be the next big villain in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I don't think it's going to happen because they've tried it. It's happened twice, and it's been such a flop. I think. MCU, I think MCU is going to go with somebody else.
Mole Man.
They were bad. They were badly written versions of Doom.
Mhm.
So you give it to Favreau and that group, Feige and those guys, to make him an overarching villain for it was so bad that Liev Schreiber couldn't even make him a bad Doom. I mean, that's how bad it was written.
I just want Mole Man. Give me Mole Man.
Mole Man would be cool as hell.
Give me Mole Man.
Namor is who I want.
Yes.
That's the villain I want.
Well, all right. Well, we are recording this. I'm hand signals, so don't punch me. Are you good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Next.
Punch me.
I fear.
That's his hand
I
signal.
fear Matt. In the Iron Fist of Matt Doom. So we're recording this. It is October 13th, right? And at the end of this month is the High Holy Day for something. It's we're coming on Halloween, so as
Well,
Jerry
there went
was-
all of our Jewish listeners.
the High Holy Day.
Yeah, you just called Halloween a holy day.
Well, people, Christians in Christmas. That I just offended everybody. I'm an equal opportunity offensive human being. It's a gay Christmas. We'll put it that way. That's what Halloween is. And like Jerry was talking at the beginning of the show, like we're in the spirit of like wanting to watch horror films, scary stuff.
Yeah.
Monsters are my favorite thing. So as I spoke about last week,
Your favorite thing is monsters?
my favorite thing is Monsters. Also my favorite book. Last week, I spoke about a little Man-Thing story. This week, I'm going to tell you about The Curse of Dracula, as written by Marv Wolfman, drawn by Gene Colan, and colored by one Mr. Dave Stewart. So Jerry and I got some simpatico going on here. So this is not Bram Stoker's Dracula. This is like a sequel to a sequel of Bram Stoker's Dracula. This it was put out.
Movie in the series is never really that great.
Yeah, it's and that to be fair, that's kind of true of this book, but it's still a fun book and it's doing a lot of stuff. So this book is more of a extraordinary gentleman take on the team that hunted the original Dracula. It's got the great grandson of all the characters in the book. There's they've got a black woman who's blind, that she's half vampire.
Were you thinking of Van Helsing?
Yeah. So you've got a character so you get the great grandson of Van Helsing. You get the black woman who is essentially a Blade analog. But she's blind. She's half vampire. You get this conglomeration of vampire hunters, and they're going after Dracula because they think Dracula is still alive. Now, there's another figure that shows up in the book that is convinced that Dracula is dead. Because he thinks his grandfather killed him, and that they have to realize is no, Dracula's still very much alive, and he's essentially the man behind the curtain. He's making new vampires, and he's leading, and he is affecting the American political atmosphere. He has actually got.
Is this based on a true story?
Way different horror story than what we're telling. So Dracula has actually got this politician in his pocket, and he's seduced his wife. And he's making them do all kinds of things. It's a fun story. You can read it. The book is written early 2000s. I picked it up because, number one, Dave Stewart, but also a big fan of Gene Colan's art. You get some amazing depictions in here, and they're painted. You want to see how a Rolls Royce should be driven. Should be drawn. I can't speak today. It's in this book. The book uses the layouts that you see in a lot of those old eerie and creepy magazines that you run through. It plays with tension really well. By the end of it, what you have gleaned is that Dracula just is. Like, Dracula is. He is an unstoppable force.
Like Darkseid.
Dracula's got Darkseid whipped, at least according to Marv Wolfman and Gene Colan. He is the political, maniacal figure behind everything. And he's tricked the people that are helping him trick. Like, he has no agenda that is not his own. He has no one stands with him that is valuable to him except him. And everybody who is in his way gets swept off the board on some level. And nothing is sacred to him. And that's a really bleak take on Dracula, because if you go back to Bram Stoker, at least that Dracula, there were things that were sacred to him. The humans around him on some level did mean something to him. His agenda relied on the need for love in many ways. Like, that's why he was infatuated with these people. This Dracula doesn't have that. This Dracula doesn't need that, doesn't want that in his life. He's just over with it. Actually, the Van Helsings from Bram Stoker's Dracula are what like ridded him of those shackles, so to speak. And he's just come unhinged, and it's fun. It's a 4 series. It's made up of 4 little comics. You can pick it up. It's a Dark Horse book. I forget how much I paid for it. I think $15. If you want a great take on those characters, you'll enjoy this. Is it the best vampire story in the world? No. It's certainly not the most modern vampire story, and it's written by 2 guys who were older at the time. But it's still a fun story. It'll get you in the mood for Halloween stories. I would read it if nothing else, but for Gene Colan's art. To me, that's better than the story. This was not Marv Wolfman's strongest moment, but it was certainly wonderful to look at.
Huh.
And for a book that you want to read a really creepy bedtime story, go check this out. It's fun times. Fun
Awesome.
stuff. So, well, all right, go look at all of those books. All good books all around. And we really hope you enjoyed our review of the Joker, and we hope you inspired to go check out some comics. Now, as per usual, next Wednesday there are new comics being released. Every Wednesday, that's New Comic Book Day at a local comic shop near you, and we would all encourage you to jump out and go buy some books. Go experience these new things for you. And then let us know. Again, come by and swing by and tell us what you're reading. So I'll kick us off on this one. I am going to encourage you to pick up a book called Marked Number 1. It's from Image Comics. This is written by David Hine, Brian Haberlin, and Gerard Van Dyke. It's a series premiere, kind of a double. Like, you're getting 2 books for the price of 1. Essentially, it's a big formatted book. And this focuses around these characters called the Marked. And they look like they're young, cool hipsters, like they're young, energetic, influencing society, yada, yada, yada. But they are mixing magic and technology, and their bodies are tattooed with these glyphs, with these tattoos that they can derive power from. They use their tattooed powers solely for the pursuit of pleasure. That is, until the young woman who the book's focusing around, named Lila, she creates a dangerous new form of hybrid sorcery. And the party's over for the Marked, or maybe. We'll see how that works out. So go check it out. Marked Number 1 from Image Comics.
I'll jump in.
Okay.
I'm going to jump. I'm really glad I said this because somebody else would have named this book. So, X-Men Number 1 by Marvel Comics.
I had a whole gag about jumping in first and saying that in joke.
Yeah, I knew you did. Yeah. I see your cards. Go to the next one.
Yeah.
You're going to have all week to prepare for all your jokes next week. So, yeah, X-Men Number 1, Jonathan Hickman, and, I cannot pronounce that name.
Do your best.
Lionel Francis Yu.
That one, yeah.
Lionel Francis Yu.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's all you really need to know about it.
Yeah, I don't have to say
X-Men
anything other
number
than that. Yeah, I mean, my gosh.
Yeah, if you haven't read the
Hoxpox
stuff.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, the Hoxpox stuff.
Mm-hmm. 12 issues. It was awesome. Jerry, what you reading next week, buddy?
I am going to attempt to pick up Metal Men #1. It's going to be a 12-issue maxi series by Dan Didio, Shane Davis, and Michelle Delecki. It is another one of those series that's going to be spinning out of the dark multiverse stuff. I don't think I've ever read all of a Metal Men series, but they've always been characters that have intrigued me, so I will at least pick up the first issue and see what I think.
I've got one of the DC Showcase books about the Metal Men at home, so they're fun when written well.
They are pretty neat.
Okay. What you got?
I'm going to go with Crazy #1 by Marvel, written by Jerry Dugan and Don Simpson. It's Obnoxio the Clown returns to Marvel Universe.
No shit.
Yeah, that was my backup pick.
Yep. I don't even know if I signed up for this book, but I will definitely be picking it up off the wall if I did it.
Yeah, I didn't hear about this one. That's going to be fun.
Yep. So I'm kind of excited to read a modern take on Obnoxio.
Yeah. So. I'm definitely going to check that out. Well, you know what I'm excited about? I'm excited about November 15th, 16th, and 17th.
Yes.
And that's what's going on those days, you ask? Well, I'm glad you asked.
I'll be settled in an apartment in Seattle.
We're losing a Jerry, which is, Sadness Parade. But we're going to treat our sadness by all converging on Comic Conway, presented by the Faulkner County Library System in Conway. It's a great little local con. Lots of great artists are going to be there. We told you a few about them. We got Freddie Williams coming on. You got Howard Chaykin coming on. You got a bunch more. Cannot wait for it. It's going to be good times, and we hope we see you all there. Yeah. But if we don't see you there, you can come check out what we see on our Facebook page and all of our other social media sites. We would really appreciate it if you'd come join us, carry on the conversation. As always, go forth and love some comics. Woo!